Hey, hey, it's Marz with a Z. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm here for another question of the month. So, this month we were asked, how does recovery relate to our HIV journey, and what have we learned? So, I would say for me, when I think of recovery, one of the first things I think about is my biological mother and her struggle with drug use. She was addicted to heroin, and so she was in and out of rehab and recovery for as long as I knew her. She passed away when I was 17. I was a senior in high school, and so unfortunately, she was in and out, and so that's my first take on recovery. But I think of her as someone who was constantly trying to do better and be better for herself and for her kids, and was constantly trying to find a better way or a way out in a sense. But I also didn't get a lot of time to really talk to her about, her drug use and how that affected her, yet alone how it affected me. We didn't really get a ton of opportunities to really dive deep into that stuff. But the other things I think about when I think about recovery is thinking about my own recovery in recovering from HIV related illnesses, like the fact that I had pneumonia almost every single year, whether it was winter or summer, it didn't matter. Recovering from the stigma that was consistently like placed on me, especially as a kid. It was, I was born at a time when this was still considered the gay disease, and so a kid having AIDS or HIV, just it was unprecedented territory. And so because of that, parents didn't know how to allow their kids to interact with me. They didn't know how to feel safe without the certainty of the science that told them they were safe, because it just wasn't there yet. And so I think the recovery from being lonely sometimes and having very few friends that I was allowed to hang out with, the recovery from spending a lot of time in and out of the hospital, and a lot of the different medical treatments and testings and things like that I had to go through, that I had family support. My aunts or my uncle were, always there for me and supporting me and taking me to those appointments, whether it be at 3 a.m. or, the next appointment the very next week, or, they were great about helping me get the treatment that I needed in order to survive and live. But the recovery aspect, I think, will honestly be lifelong. In the trauma that I experienced before being brought to my aunt and before being adopted, the trauma that I experienced just medically from having to recover and heal constantly, like just kind of like constantly in a state of healing, constantly in a state of recovery. You can never get enough sleep. You can never, fully feel I don't want to say fully well, because I am a healthy individual, but like you're constantly feeling like there's something to recover from. At this point in my life, a lot of the recovery that I feel like I'm, working with is mental, and the trauma of, having to learn how to put in my own feeding tube when I was 4, which then meant that at some point I had to start going to school with my feeding tube in, and I was in like 2nd or 3rd grade by the time I started doing that. But that, I have a tube taped to my face, and the kids are, automatically start asking questions, and then you start getting teased as the sick kid or the teacher's pet, because I was allowed to like kind of come and go to classes. I had to go to private schools. They wouldn't even, my aunt had to search for schools that would take me, and they always had to be private schools, which meant she had to pay extra money for me to go there, because nobody would agree at the public schools to take me and my medicine, to be able to distribute my medicine to me and things. And so really childhood was a struggle in constant rejection that, I'm so grateful for my mom and my aunt who raised me, because she really put up a fight and a battle to help me exist in a world that didn't know didn't think that I was going to live. And as I continued to live, she continued to help pioneer and pave the way for me to be able to live as normal of a life as possible, whatever that means. So, anyway, that's my take on this month's question revolving around recovery. I hope everybody's staying safe out there. This is Marz, signing out.